How's it going? Today we are going to be going over the top 20 security and OOP terms, and we are going to start with class. Class in OOP encapsulates all data and functions to operate on the data. The goal is to allow access or manipulation of the class data in only the ways the designer intended. Encapsulation finds its origin in object-oriented programming, or OOP, and then we know that the OOP class definition encapsulates all data and functions to operate in the data. And then again, the goal is to allow access or manipulation of the class data in only the ways the designer intended. Next, we're going to have inheritance, which is a design technique that separates the functionality of a program into independent interchangeable components. Same thing with modularity. It's also a design technique that separates the functionality of a program into independent interchangeable components. Next, we're going to have process isolation, and we know that process is a program running on a computer. Each process has a region of the memory or address space which only it can access, isolating the process address space from other address spaces, preventing tampering or interference from or by other processes. Next, we're going to have domain separation. Separating domains allow for enforcement of rules governing the entry and use of domains by entities outside the domain. Next, you're going to have open design, which is the principle that protection mechanisms should not depend upon secrecy of design for security. Next, we're going to have defense layering, and then in the context of computer security, a layer is a separate level that must be conquered by an attacker to breach a system. Layering slows down an attacker, thus the attacker needs to conquer each layer before moving on to the next. Next, we're going to have least privilege, providing only the minimum amount of privileges necessary to perform a job or function. Next, we're going to have abstraction, which is the concept that something complicated can be thought of and represented more simply. All models are abstractions since they reduce the complexity of an object into something that is understandable. Next, we're going to have data hiding, which is only allow necessary aspects of a data structure or record to be observed or accessed. Next, we're going to have simplicity, which is the lack of complexity allows system designers and programmers to identify unwanted access paths. Users can easily translate their general protection goals to appropriate system security configurations. Next, we're going to have minimization, which is having the least functionality necessary in a program or a device. Next, we're going to have confidentiality, which is an expectation for the entity entrusted with data or a code to keep it a secret. For example, if a healthcare provider is entrusted with patient data, the user expects the healthcare provider to keep it secret. Next, we're going to have polymorphism. Inheritance not only adds all public and protected methods of the superclass to your subclass, but it also allows you to replace their implementation, the method of the subclass, then overrides the one of the superclass. Next, we're going to have two-factor authentication, which is one of the most important ways of adding additional security to an account. In addition to something you know, such as your password, it requires something you have, such as a code from your phone or a physical security key, or it could be a picture, whatever. So it's another form of authentication to get access to a device. Next, we're going to have adware, which is a type of malware that primarily exists to barrage the user with advertisements, common when you search for the web for free software. Botnet. A botnet refers to a group of computers under control of an attacker. Owners of the controlled computers usually have no idea they're being controlled. Next, we're going to have availability, which is an exception for the entity entrusted with data or a code to allow access to it when needed. For example, the personal records in a database are available when needed. Next, we have integrity, which is an exception for the entity entrusted with data or code to only allow authorized modifications to it. For example, only authorized individuals are allowed to make changes to an employee's salary. And here are some references, and that's my presentation.